I remember a few years back, we were in the utility meta, and as the name would imply, it was a lot of utilities, more specifically on the defender side, to use to waste the attacker's time. This mainly happened because Ubisoft decided to release a lot of defenders that had bulletproof gadgets and that were insanely strong, like Melusi and Maestro. By the way, if you're newer to the game, be happy you didn't have to deal with Melusi. Now you have to deal with Fenrir. And it mainly happened in Pro League, however, it started to bleed into ranked a little bit, and of course, people complain about it. Now, you might be thinking, well, aren't the defenders supposed to use the utility? And you would be correct. But the main issue with this meta is that the attackers didn't have enough utility of their own to deal with the defenders. And back then, we didn't have impact EMPs or even a Gaunt 6. And while we did have the secondary heart rate gadget, it was significantly weaker back then. And Ubisoft decided to nerf all the defenders that were helping the utility meta, like Jaeger, Melusi, Maestro, and even Mira. And some notable operatives have lost their deployable shield, like Smoke, which was still one of the few operatives that had a lot of utility left. And if we look at Thunderbird and Thorn, the operatives that were released after the utility meta, we can kind of tell that Ubisoft was either trying so hard not to make their gadgets so strong, or put them in a more frag-heavy role. And in the same year, if we look at the attackers, the first one to come out was Flores, that had 4 RCXD drones that could destroy any utility that he wanted to, and then Osa, that technically had 2 deployable shields. And on her release, and still today, Thorn did have a deployable shield. We can see a complete tone shift when it comes to Ubisoft's balancing. Back then, the attackers didn't have enough utility to deal with the new defender's utility, and now we have the attackers having a lot of utility, and the defenders basically having no utility. And I'm gonna be honest, Thunderbird's gadget didn't really bring any utility to her team. It's just, hey, you get an additional 30 HP, like whoopie-doo. With a lot of those balance changes and the new operatives that were introduced that year, I think this was the first step of Ubisoft accidentally making the TDM meta. And some people like to argue it's because people just don't like to learn anymore, and they rather just play Ion or Ashe and frag out, which I do think has a part to do with it, but I think it's mainly to do with Ubisoft over-nerfing some of the operatives. Because if you look at Melusi, back in the day, she has a bigger radius on her Banshees, and you would have to use an explosive device to destroy one. And nowadays, the radius is smaller, and once you enter the radius, the core of the Banshee itself will expose, and you can just straight up shoot it. Now, I understand why people wanted Melusi to get nerfed, and yeah, I was kind of one of those people, I hate to admit. However, I think completely reworking the gadget was the wrong way to go about it. Me personally, I would have just taken away one of her Banshees and take away the natural cell as well. That would reduce her fragging potential, and reduce some of her utility without making it completely bad. But the worst case for this is Maestro. He used to be on top of the world with having 2 of its evil eyes and having an insanely good gun. Nowadays, Maestro's gadget is countered by literally everything. Impact EMPs, regular Thatcher EMPs, Gaunt 6, frag grenades, even going up and mailing it will shatter the glass. And if Maestro has the audacity to open up the gadget to use his laser, they can just shoot the middle of it and destroy it like Melusi. However, for Maestro, the part that I think he suffers from the most is the fact that all the new additions that Ubisoft decided to add to the attacking side. And now because of this, an operative like Jaeger, which was mainly good in the utility meta because he could defend so much utility and his gadget itself was strong. Now we have his reworked gadget, which back then one ADS could stop 2 projectiles and they would go offline. Nowadays, it can catch 1 projectile but recharge infinitely. However, it takes 10 seconds to do that. So it's kind of a good change back then, I would say. But now a lot of the other operators have been nerfed on defense. Jaeger doesn't really need to be played all that much anymore. And while yes, he can stop frag grenades, which are good, they haven't been nerfed yet either, so someone can just go below and nade you, and what did the ADS do for you? So the point here is that the operators that had a lot of utility got nerfed so hard that people don't want to play them anymore. So there is one thing that has been constant throughout Siege's history, and that is just straight up fragging. And because of that, operators like Warden has skyrocketed in the pick rates. The main use for Warden is the fact that he has an MPX like Valkyrie, but he has the 1.5 scope, so it makes it insanely easy with a low recoil, high fire rate SMG to frag out with. Same thing with Thorn, she has a good SMG with a 1.5, however her utility is weak, and no one even uses the deployable shield on her because barbed wire is better, I guess. Not even to mention Solus and Rank 2.0. You know how people say prep phase or drone phase is TikTok phase? Yeah, it's because of Solus. The fact that you can just drive your drone into the building and she can just find it instantly, it's insanely strong on her part and insanely annoying for the attackers. Now, the part that I dread about talking about the most is Rank 2.0 because everyone and their grandma has already talked about it. People have gone on Twitter and say that it's either bad because coppers can be matched up with champions, or people just go on Twitter to upload a clip of saying average Rank 2.0 lobby and then put 3 skull emojis, and they just knife a guy that's looking at the wall. Which I'm not entirely blaming Rank 2.0, but I feel like because of that and ranks don't really matter anymore, people don't care anymore. Which also contributes to the fragging meta because they rather just rush in and kill people or die. So I'm basically saying a purple or pink charm, an emblem in a game, can really matter a lot. Apparently so. Personally, I did care, but you know, not everyone. Another issue with Rank 2.0 is that if we reverted back to Rank 1.0, people are still going to play mostly the same because of the utility problem. But one thing that people haven't realized is how is Ubisoft exactly going to fix all these problems? Now, Ubisoft has said that they want to go back to more gadget-focused operators. However, I don't think it's going to be the extent of what we're thinking. Like, I don't think we're going back to a utility meta for two main reasons. Number one, if we go back to a utility-focused meta again, or having a lot of gadgets again, then it's going to make a lot of people upset because it would be boring gameplay. And that kind of leads into reason number two, which a lot of people are playing Siege again. At the time of me recording this, it is 1:16 p.m. on a Friday, and there is over 50,000 players on Steam alone, not including Ubisoft Connect and console. And as far as I understand, console has a way bigger player base than PC. And you can mostly think this is jinxie.
So why would Monty not be the first guy in? Have you guys ever even watched a military movie? They would never put the shield behind the guns! You always put the shield at the front!
He has done a really good job so far, and he's brought a lot of attraction back to Siege. But with all of those new players, they're going to notice that this game is more frag heavy. So the second that there is a lot more gadgets they have to deal with, they will either get frustrated or bored of the game and leave. So I think mainly on the defender side, we will see a few operator reworks and maybe some gadget tweaks, but we will never go back to year 5 in the utility meta, which is a good or bad thing depending on who you ask. Now, there could be a lot more things that could contribute to this more frag-heavy playstyle that people like to do now, so I want to know your opinions in the comment section below. But with all that said, this is the end of the video. If you like what I make, I appreciate it if you subscribe, and with all that said, I hope you have a good day or good night, and goodbye.